Hello and welcome to the Convergent video series for the week of January 11th. Top three things we're going to cover on the video this week. First, the markets were up, continuing their momentum from the end of the year. Second, we're going to touch on unemployment data, both the weekly claims as well as the December monthly data. And finally, we're going to introduce our quarterly investment themes presentation that we'll be doing here in the next week. But before we jump into the data, I hope you had a great holiday season. It's been a couple of weeks since we've done these videos, so it's my first chance to wish all of you that in person. I know it's been a different year and hope that you all still had a chance to spend some time with family, whether that was in person or virtually. So also, I want to introduce the fact that we are going to be changing up our videos this year and hopefully bringing you a lot more. So in addition to just these weekly market updates, we want to bring you a lot of additional information beyond just the market news, things that we believe are going to be valuable information to you as you plan for your goals now and into the future. And we're going to be starting that with this quarterly themes presentation, which I know is on the investments in the markets, but we're going to be going a lot more in depth in a number of areas, and I hope you enjoy that. So look for more news coming out on all of these different topics here in the very near future. So with that, let's jump into the data. First, as we mentioned, the market was up almost 2% on the S&P for the week last week, and it came with a lot of volatility as we've seen over the last year. So it was marching higher early in the week, and then we got the news near the end of the close on Wednesday of the riots going on in D.C. and obviously very troubling to see all of that unfolding, and the market took a big hit right at the end of the day. However, on Thursday and Friday, the market shot right back up and finished a very solid week. And seeing these the riots and the protests going on, makes us think back to a book and a topic that we've touched on a number of times last year on the video and in the blog, which is this book called The Fourth Turning, written by Neil Howe. And in the book, it was written in 1997, so over 20 years ago, and it talked about generational shifts that happen throughout history in our country, and it happens about every fourth generation. And they predicted in the book over 20 years ago that 2020 would be that year of the next fourth turning. And so while I hope that these protests and the level of social unrest that we're seeing, much of it due to these large gaps we've seen in income and wealth, as well as these big gaps happening between the different sides of the political party. Ideally, we'd see those things, come to a rest a bit more this year. But, based on history, at least, we may just be seeing the beginnings of some of this. So something that we're going to keep an eye on and see, how it might impact things over the long term. And we'll just keep you guys updated on our thoughts on that. So with that, let's jump into some unemployment data. The weekly numbers last week and over the last number of weeks have been pretty steady. So we had just under 1 million of total new claims when you include the state claims plus the pandemic claims, just over 5 million of continuing claims, and just under 20 million of total claims. And those numbers have been pretty consistent over the last month or so, which, while those numbers are high, you may be able to see some bright spots in that, given that, we saw these major lockdowns and shutdowns again due to rising COVID cases, and we didn't see any major jump in unemployment claims. And so that may be seen as a slight positive. We'll have to see how the new stimulus package impacts that. We've seen a number of the COVID claims, the pandemic claims fall off. And is that just because those programs are expiring, or are those people actually getting back to work? We'll have to wait and see as now these new extended claims are made available, whether we're going to see a big jump in those numbers again. We also got a release of the December unemployment data, and we saw a drop of 150,000 jobs in December. It's the first monthly drop in jobs since April of last year. And, I wouldn't say it was very unexpected. I think most people expected December to struggle because of the rise in COVID cases and the lockdowns. But it's something we're going to have to keep an eye on. Again, is this something that could become a short-term trend? We don't believe it is. We believe this is a short-term drop, and that we do expect job increases to continue into the beginning of the year. But again, something that we'll be keeping a close eye on. And so finally, I want to touch on our quarterly investment themes that we'll be releasing here in the next week or so. We're going to cover three main topics on that quarterly themes, and we're going to go just much more detail than we can on these short weekly videos. So first, we're going to touch on 2020. So what happened through the year and how that impacted the decisions we made, and what did we learn? Two, we're going to touch on what we see coming in the next quarter, but really even the next 3 to 6 months overall, and how is that going to impact how we're managing our portfolios. And then finally, we're going to touch on the death of the 60-40 portfolio and what that means. So the 60-40 portfolio is a traditional portfolio of 60% equities or stocks and 40% bonds. And over the last 40 years, that portfolio has performed remarkably well in both good times and bad. And we're going to talk about, will that be able to continue? And if there's structural changes coming in the markets and economy in the near future, how will that impact the traditional 60/40 portfolio? And are there things that you could add to your portfolio that might provide some better returns over the long run? So we'll be touching on that as well. So with that, as always, if you have any individual questions on your situation, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, we hope you have a great week, and we'll look forward to talking with you very soon.